I haven't tried it yet, but there's actually one channel devoted to it.
Actually, I
Yes.
don't have that.
Take it, because I have
I
another.
took the wrong
8:38.
bag.
Yeah, I got
But you
another.
have to have a Netflix account.
Oh, yeah, that's why I haven't bothered, because I don't.
Yeah, so you type in 8:38, it brings it up to Netflix and
Yeah,
shows it.
interesting.
Handy to have the minutes at the next meeting.
Okay, the time is 7:15. This is the Littleton Zoning Board of Appeals. We're in the meeting room at 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Massachusetts. The agenda's been posted. We have 5 regular members and 2 alternates present. We'll start with the 7:15 discussion, case number 126A, case of 563 King Street. The petitioner, Joe Cataldo, was asked to return before the board to provide an update. Joe?
Good evening, board members. Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. Ms. Chairman? Mrs.
Whatever.
Mrs. Just want to give you an update. We've moved our large vehicles to our facility in Air. We have a screening operation going on that property. We only bring the big trucks back into Littleton to make deliveries to our property. I asked Janet if she had any complaints from our neighbors. It's my understanding that she has not. I have not had any complaints. We did receive a Christmas tree delivery in late November, and I texted my neighbors and my neighbor, that was the direct abutter, and let her know that we were receiving a truck at between 9 and 10 o'clock that evening, and it would be unloaded in 2 hours, which it was, and she was fine with that. And it's business as usual, and everything seems to be going well.
Do I have any abutters to 563 King Street in the room? Board members have any questions?
What a lovely result, no butters.
You have your, because I drive by your air place every now and then, there's that's a big, huge place.
Yes.
A lot of room for you
Yes,
to do
yes,
stuff.
it's worked out very, very well. Thank you. So, so that operation will remain there. We did trade in our noisy loader that started this whole complaint process, and that's long gone and forgotten. And so, as I said, the operation of processing material is up there. We still do have material in Littleton that is yet to be sold, but we'll move that as time goes on. But
You don't plan to replenish it in Littleton.
we do not plan on doing any screening, although I believe we're permitted to do that, but we don't intend on doing that. So,
Dirt is a farmer's business.
yes, it is. I welcome you for a visit if you'd like to come and see, but I think it's just,
Good job on working with your neighbors.
well, we're being cooperative. We started, we don't load until after 7 o'clock in the morning. Guys come in, but there's no loading that happens before that time. So,
Thank you.
I don't have any questions.
Yeah, thanks for a good result on that, Joe. It's not always the case.
thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Last time we were here was a snowstorm, and now it's spring, so have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in, Mr. Carroll.
Thanks. Take care.
Good to see you.
Good, I see that, and guess what? I'll give these back to you. 4 accounted, I want to receive. Old habits die hard, I'm sorry. I think we're close enough to 7:20 to call the next case. It's 7:20 PM. I'm calling case 921A, the case of 15 Edwards Drive. The petitioner, Matthew Francis, requests a special permit or a variance pursuant to 173-118B2 as to nonconforming uses and structures for a proposed shed and fence with a reduced side setback. I don't think I've seen you before, Mr. Francis, so you have a seat and be
Yes,
comfortable.
thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. The way we present is very informal. You tell us what you want to do. The board will then ask questions, then we'll open it up to your
Absolutely.
neighbors. Okay,
Absolutely. So, yeah, so I'm a new resident to Littleton,
welcome.
and the only board member I've met so far is Michelle. And so, long story short, my wife and I, we have 2 kids. We're new residents, bought a new home, and we put a shed on our property. And I should have probably kept Joe around because he did all our landscaping. So he can attest to the hill that we have in the backyard. So there wasn't many options from day one to where to locate the shed. I didn't get a permit at first just because I wasn't aware. Probably should have done a little bit more digging on my end because my previous town didn't require a permit. So of course I put it down, it's built, and then needless to say, I got a letter from Michelle. And, you know, the concern was that it wasn't, the 40 feet to open space might not have been to the right level, you know, of measurement, but that checked out. But then we did find out that we were too close to the property line. So we're just under 5 feet to the property line. And I know it's, that's what I'm requesting the variance for on the shed. And then I have a fence, it's a 6-foot fence, and the posts are like 3 or 4 inches over 6 feet. So I'd like to request a variance on that. And we did discuss this all with our neighbors prior to, you know, installing everything checked out. You know, we came to an agreement. So now, of course, I got to come to an agreement with the town. So that's my story.
Board members?
Would you want to read in?
No, first I want to ask the board members, and I want to see if he's got a
Can you
buttons.
tell us which house you are on this,
Absolutely.
please?
Oh, and I did leave out the part of the septic tank, so we do have a septic system.
Where are you?
We all do.
Let's see. Right. Is everyone in Littleton?
Everybody in Littleton has a septic system.
I am this lot right here. This is funny because it's already been built up so much more.
Since that Google picture.
Yeah, I think that's it right there. Yeah, that is it. It's
That's
just
right
funny
there.
'cause there's
And
no
where is
lawn.
your shed?
So the property line goes right in between us here, and the shed's like, it's about 5 feet off of where the septic system is,
Okay,
like right in this area here. So it's like at the front of the hill.
so that's your closest.
That's
neighbor.
my closest neighbor, and that's,
And it's back
yeah.
behind your house? And where's the fence?
So the fence is right, it's right, like, about a foot away from the property line to the left.
You're this one or
Oh,
this one?
thank you for that picture.
You want to pass it
I
around?
know, it's so hard to tell that one right there.
Okay.
Yep.
So can't tell where.
And really, that's the issue now, just, you know, to move the shed, there's really nowhere else to put it because of the septic system. And I know we can't have like trucks
Is the fence
drive.
too high?
So the actual fence is 6 feet, so there are certain sections that are just over with the post. The posts are a little bit over.
Top of the posts are higher than 6 feet.
And we only allow 6 feet?
Yes,
Thing says 6 feet, and the fence is plastic, right?
yes.
Is it,
It's a vinyl fence, yeah.
Vinyl, whatever.
since
Leave out the
most,
top off.
We'd rather have a vent.
since most fence are 6-foot panels, I would say that almost every fence anybody puts up is gonna be over 6 feet. So there's
post.
no,
Yeah.
I didn't look at the regulations
But
in
you can do,
detail.
you can do 5-foot panels and,
Wow, great extra.
If it was a wooden
Yeah.
fence, you
The
could cut the
point-
posts
Wow.
flush with the top of the fence. but-
I
One at a
think
time.
that's, if you put a 6-foot panel in,
And it's 3
and
yeah.
it's a little above, I think that's silly to complain about that.
well, we're supposed to be asking him questions, not discussing.
Well, I'm
So-
just verifying that the zoning bylaws have no tolerance, i.e. 6 feet plus or minus 2 inches.
No, they don't
Oh,
have
it's a
any
good thing
tolerance.
to
It's
look
six- It's 6
Then
feet.
Right.
it might be something worth, because I want to say there's another case where we're going to look at the same thing.
It's the definitions page on,
And I did discuss with my, the gentleman who installed the fence, and he said the only issue is like, because I mentioned that, I said, you know, what if I can't beat this, and they, you know, I need to make modifications. He said, unfortunately, there's like little slots they stick into, so if you cut it flush, they could like pop out and.
Yeah,
So, I don't know.
so I direct the board to page 4, structure is defined as a combination of materials assembled at a fixed location to give support or shelter. And it says, such as a building retaining wall, blah, 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 fences over 6 feet high. So I might suggest, based on your comments, Mark, that the board write a letter to the building inspector that either in a vote before town meeting or in his interpretation, we might want to change the wording here to say fences with panels over 6 feet high.
Which is, which are
Sorry.
you looking at? This one, I mean,
if I may.
Yes.
That is something that both the zoning enforcement officer and the building inspector have been trying to bring forward to actually change. They mentioned it a couple of times, but you folks have not taken a vote on it yet. And they've been waiting to put it on the
Well,
agenda.
the
So
problem-
they would like to remove the wording as well, because they are going to fence, they're getting a lot of fines out because of the posts.
Yeah, we need to do that.
But then we need to define how high the posts are, because suddenly, the idea is to keep it from being an eyesore beyond your neighbor's property. And if we allow posts to be an indiscriminate height, you'll have some idiot putting a 7-foot
It could
post
go out of
in
control.
with a 6-foot panel, and, you know,
Right.
then putting up little netting in between them, and, or, you know,
Right.
flags or something else.
Yeah, no, and I understand that. And again, I did check with my neighbor, Barbara, I'm not sure what her last name is, but, you know, and I told her what was going on. She said if, you know, if things went sour, she should happily vouch and say that she's okay with everything. It's just, again, I didn't even know
She
what,
didn't come in tonight,
no,
and she didn't give you a letter.
no, I didn't ask, though. I just came and,
Always good to have a letter from a happy abutter.
okay.
That just so.
I'm new to this, I'm,
I did go by and look at this fence.
What do you think? I didn't get a chance.
So the fence is, I looked, from where I look at it maybe 2 inches, but it has these caps. They're sitting flush on top of it, and so the cap is about, the normal little, and it looks fine. I mean.
It sounds like a no-brainer.
The post, the problem is the posts are like 4x4 or whatever.
Right.
And then the fence comes up, and the cap is slightly bigger than the post, so the top, the dimension of the cap is
Yeah, I
probably
see.
6x6. And so when it sits on top, it has to sit above, otherwise it's not gonna fit.
I see. It sounds like a no-brainer to me.
It's
What about
standard
this
posts.
shed?
Wait,
Yeah, we're
before
not
we
done.
leave
Go
that,
ahead.
I think it's not silly, but it's an unfortunate situation that you would have to get a variance for this. Do we have to give a variance for this? Can we just assert that it's okay, or?
No, I think. we have to
I
give
don't
a variance.
consider this
should give a-
post cap a violation of the.
I think we should give a variance so that we can control somebody from
finish,
living in.
please, John?
Well,
John,
but
wait.
my
Go ahead.
complaint is these are extremely common fences. We'll see more and more of them, and it is not right that everyone who installs them should have to come in to get a variance. It's just not right.
So, everybody.
And we've had an analogous situation with signs where we've taken, for the situation of a sign with posts holding it up, we do not consider those posts as part of the square footage of the sign. And by the same token, I think we could say that the posts are not, for the purposes of this definition, are not part of the fence. I mean, I don't know, I think we should try
1
to
minute,
think
John was
about
next.
this in a way that we don't have a parade of people paying money and time to come in for us to say, oh yeah, this is silly, let's let it go.
John, you were next.
Yeah, so I think as long as we maybe come up with some magic dimension that says, as long as the post doesn't extend more than 4 inches above.
Yeah?
the
Or 2
fence,
inches or.
Then it's, so that we don't end up with somebody putting in,
No, I agree.
you know,
That's fine.
10-foot posts and putting a 5-foot
Yeah.
fence in.
I don't want to put a blanket, post can be any height. Because like I said, you'll get someone who puts up an 8-foot post and hangs flags or mosquito netting or balloons or
You would
whatever,
have.
and drives their neighbor
Absolutely.
crazy.
Yeah, right.
Police cars, flags.
I have some issues. Sorry, everybody. But I have some issues.
Not tonight.
One is that this board is not in the business of making legislation, and we cannot do that. What you'd like to do is very nice. We can recommend to the zoning enforcement officer that he redefine it, or take the time to read what he has done as a redefinition and bring it to the attention of the planning board to put it on the next town meeting warrant. But this board has no power to do what you'd like it to do, that is define height or posts or fences. So that's number one. Secondly, I have a problem with this being treated as a variance because I'm not sure there's any hardship. He could have gotten a lower fence and he could have gotten lower posts, which is a real problem. Not that I want to deny this application because it's kind of silly, as you all say, but I don't know where we establish that this gentleman has a hardship to grant him a variance in this regard. So we need to get a little creative about that. And the third issue I have, we haven't gone to the shed yet, but I'm a little concerned about the shed. The Littleton zoning bylaw is particularly specific about open space subdivision. And the open space requirements is a decision of the planning board, not the zoning board of appeals. I don't think we have jurisdiction to change the open space
You
or
already
variance.
stated that it was, we're not
It's
within the
within,
40.
yeah,
It
the
is within
40.
the 40 feet of the open space?
It's further, it's like 45 or
Okay,
46
so you're not
feet.
within the 40 feet buffer?
Yeah, it's just like under 5 feet of the property line is where it's, like, so it's
The
been,
certificate of, excuse me, I didn't mean to cut you off. The
No, I'm
certificate
sorry.
of decision, condition 25A states, according to the building inspector, the minimum street setback is 15, minimum side setback is 10.
Mm-hmm.
You're describing that you're 5.
exactly, and that's what I'd like to request the variance
We don't
for.
have the power to
Oh,
do
okay.
that. And I just had this happen on the Cooper Farm development for a
Okay.
client. I had to go back to the planning board and get the planning board to modify its decision in regards to that one specific violation.
Okay,
So let me see, let me finish.
Sherry, wait a minute, I don't mean to interrupt, but
Yeah.
he's more than 40 feet away from the open space. He's only 5 feet from his side of his neighbor. It's not that, this does not involve the open space, it involves the side, which
This
we've,
decision does
setback.
not involve the open space. The whole point of an open space subdivision plan is that a developer is allowed to get bonus density on his lots and to have less than 1 acre per lot, provided he gives the town certain open space, which this developer did. The planning board then has the jurisdictional right to say, but each lot still needs this side, front, and rear setback, which they did in their decision, condition 25A. It says, we allow this open space subdivision provided that each of the lots within this development have these setbacks. Now, in a general sense, we're the appellate board, if you will, for setback violations
Right.
on the town zoning bylaw. But we are not the appellate board for the planning board conditions in their decision on a specific, if you look in the book, the power to give open space approval rests with the planning board, not with the zoning board. So I don't think we have the
so
power
you're
to do
saying we
this.
don't have the power.
Now,
It'd be the
now, I don't want to
zoning-
send
the
you away
zoning
cold,
board
it's
of
just,
appeals.
these are the thoughts coming into my head initially. Let me read into the record what the building inspector said. Let me ask first if we have any abutters here? And I personally think that the planning board will give you your relief, I just don't think we can, so give me a minute.
yeah, no, take your time, and I appreciate you going into it thoroughly like this.
The applicant seeks, this is the hearing on 15 Edward Drive, and this is the building zoning enforcement officer comments. Applicant seeks a variance pursuant to Article 19, Open Space Development, Section 173, 118B. The property is part of Bennett Orchard subdivision and open space development. The certificate of decision, condition 25A states, minimum street setback of 15, minimum side setback of 10, minimum rear 10 for accessory building, except as provided by Section 173, 108B. And no building shall be erected within 40 feet from any boundary lines of the open space. Now, you're not within 40 feet of the boundary line of the open space.
Correct.
Your minimum street setback is fine, and your minimum rear is 10, that's fine. So we're just violating a minimum side by 5 feet. Now, what does 173, 108B say, which is the open space bylaw? Yards, no minimum lot, area frontage, or yard requirements apply within an open space development. No minimum lot area apply, meaning our zoning board, our zoning regulations don't apply because their special permit decision does it. And let me just look at variance and the powers that we have for variances.
Do you want me to finish Roland's comments?
Yes, please.
On January 29th, 2019, a shed and fence were observed at the property. A letter was sent to Mr. and Mrs. Francis noting the above stated violations. Mr. Francis responded upon receipt of the letter, and after discussion with the zoning review requirements, he submitted an application for review showing the location of the structures and allowing our department to enter the property to verify the locations. During the site inspection, it was observed that Francis's had the side lot line staked prior to installation of the shed and fence. The shed is located 3.5 feet from the side property line, and the fence is 1 foot off the property line. The fence is a 6-panel fence. However, the posts with caps are approximately 6 feet 4 inches, so the fence is also part of the request. Allowable area for shed placement is severely restricted due to the location of the septic disposal system and Section 173-108B requirement that no buildings be within 40 feet of any boundary lines of open space. The Francises were not aware of the zoning requirements and have been totally cooperative in bringing the site into compliance. No further comment.
Is your shed on a concrete foundation, or is it movable?
So the problem is that I'd say it's too big to move just because there would be like a truck that would have to do it. And that's exactly like where the septic system is, and that could dig into that. And then it's not screwed together, of course, it's nailed together, so a $5,000 shed, you'd have to ruin it to actually take it apart. And I would,
Also, I see a building inspector comment, a Board of Health comment that says you can't put the shed on the septic
and that's the only
system.
reason I knew that,
So
yeah.
there's a hardship for the shed, and there's,
There's a hardship based on the size and topography of the lot
Yeah.
for the shed.
I got the hardship for the shed. I'm not at all concerned about giving you variance relief for the shed. The problem is I don't think that we can, so let me just see if I can find a loophole.
Well, the
Thank you.
setbacks
No,
are,
just
It's good to
appreciate
find
you
the
trying.
loopholes if you can.
the setbacks are defined by the bylaw that comes out of the planning board. If the planning board sets other restrictions, like you just read before, I would still think that we have the right to issue a variance to
To
it.
grant relief.
Yeah.
So the fact that the setbacks that the planning board delineated are the same as if it was a conforming property,
Except front setback.
except front. But this particular setback that applies is the same as it is for a conforming property, so would that make a difference in the way you were thinking about it?
Because of the side setback for detached structure?
Yeah.
And because the planning board essentially
I mean,
sets the setbacks.
it's not a unique,
I mean, by definition, we are the zoning board of appeals. So
We're not supposed to be able to appeal
you don't think that they can appeal the planning board's decisions, only the zoning bylaws?
only the zoning bylaws is right. When the planning board is granted the power to give a, and I'm inclined to say that if it's the board's pleasure to give relief on the shed, and sort of hold your nose or close your eyes to the fact that it's violative of the planning board's decision, I'm less concerned about it because it's a shed and because it's a $5,000 movable shed. I would be way more concerned if it was
A garage.
Oh, like
an
a saw.
addition to your structure.
I see what you're saying,
And that
yeah.
would really bother me.
Right.
or if it was if closer than 40 feet to the open space boundary, or, I mean, I think the
Or
fact.
if you had a neighbor in here complaining.
That's true. And again, I told you she
Any
would
of those,
definitely.
any of those things.
You
Right.
tied her up so
That
she
makes
couldn't
sense.
come tonight?
Her car mysteriously broke.
5 tires.
But I'm still troubled by the fence.
give
And
me any
where do we
ideas.
have a hardship on a fence? Have you got children, a dog?
I do.
Some reason that you absolutely need your yard fenced in
So
such
I-
a way that you're saving lives?
So I guess what I could say, I do have a 1.5-year-old and a 3-year-old, or 3.5, almost 4. And there is a kind of a steep hill, kind of like right after where my shed is and after where the fence is. So I say, like, if I were to say anything, that's gonna, I mean,
You're protecting your children.
protecting my children not to fall down the hill.
From the unusual topography
Yes.
of a steep hill, and
It is actually a pretty
Buy
steep
that?
little hill, but I
I
don't
think
know
we
if
can buy
that.
that.
I would really like, if the decision gets written, for whomever writes the decision, to give a nod to the planning board that we're not intending to usurp their powers, as I just said. And on the fence, that while the hardship is minimal, maybe the board had a concurrence that the 4 inches of end cap was a little bit overkill to make a decision based on that. I don't know, something like that.
And the posts are incidental to the fence, they're part of the
That- I like
design of the
that. Posts
fence.
are incidental.
And I think the bylaw's intent is aimed at the fence.
Yeah.
Or the mean height of the fence.
Yeah, well, then you start bringing the posts in again. As long as the posts are appropriate for the fence design, I don't even think they should be considered.
And there's a lot of ins and outs. You could put a 4-inch layer of mulch at the base of the fence and it would now conform. And
That's true, actually.
there's just a lot of ways that this could be,
Put a little pile of dirt at each post.
right, exactly. Just put at the post, yeah.
Oh, and I understand, like, you don't want to, like, people putting like 4 feet lattice on top, because then they say, oh, well, that's not part of the fence, it's detachable, but I think that's what that.
What Jeff said earlier about posts of signs, we haven't included posts of signs in areas of signs. But on the other hand, if someone wanted to use a 20-foot high
Yeah.
post on their sign, it would
There'd
be
be no law
considered.
saying no to it, right?
Right, well, no, we would consider that.
Right.
It would be a thing.
Absolutely.
Mark, I also ask you to look at the definition of structure, please,
Which
because you're the one that
is
raised this about
one-
post
173 what?
2. Under, and it's alphabetical, the definitions are alphabetical, so for structure. And we have different pages on our books. But the letter from the building inspector to Matthew and Melissa Francis says, quote, ... fences over 6 feet high or parts thereof are structures. And that's not how I'm reading this bylaw. The bylaw says, combination of materials such as fences over 6 feet high.
Sherry, I'm not willing to go there. I'm not willing to say that posts aren't part of this.
No, I'm not trying to go there. I'm trying to get consensus about whether the letter is wrongly worded, because the definition does not say fences or parts thereof.
Well, it says the word structure shall be construed where the context requires.
As the-
Could we find that we do not find the context here requires the post to be part of the structure? And that would allow us to, in other cases, find it. We could just say, in this case.
Maybe. I mean, maybe as part of the decision in bolstering. I don't like that the variance, that the hardship is, it's not a hardship we're used to seeing. There's not a real hardship here. For the fence to be higher than, it's a bad bylaw. I'm not
Oh, no,
challenging you.
I
It's just,
appreciate.
we're struggling
what you're
because
doing.
once we do this, we have to do it for everybody.
Right. No, and I understand that.
But
If I
in
can-
this case, would we say that we are not granting a variance because we feel like the bylaw allows this?
Oh, we're going to have to give them a variance, or the building department will not find it, nor will a subsequent buyer find it okay. So we have to give the variance. But I think we want to put into any decision the qualifiers on this variance. I'm less inclined to say that this constitutes a variance. I mean, we've often said it's not a want, it's a need. A variance is for a need, not a want. A fence is a want.
No, it's a need if he's got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Yeah, but in reality, he's not corralling the entire, again, not challenge to you, but.
Right. No,
It's a nice
exactly.
argument, but it's not a compelling argument to me.
Absolutely.
Because he's just making a dividing line to his neighbors.
Can we say something like, in our opinion, a post that's appropriate to a fence should not be considered part of the fence
Yes,
height, or something like
yes,
that?
Yes. Yeah, I think we can put that in the narrative.
But I'd like us to be careful about that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes these things take off on us, and we've
Yeah.
had that
That's why I
problem
say
before,
appropriate to
where
the
someone
fence.
says, oh, well, you gave 4 inches, why can't you do
Right.
a foot? And then,
Say,
it's
'cause we
just.
don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Or we can always say, in
You're
this
the
case.
grown-up and say,
Yeah,
no,
but
I'm
then we've
sorry.
been in here and suddenly someone on the board says, we've given it to him, we have to give it to him, and then it's just,
Can I see his application one time? Did he bring it down as a, see, I wish he had brought it as a appeal from the building inspector rather than a variance, because I'd have no problem on that, granting an appeal for that reason. He didn't check appeal, right? He
Sure,
didn't
you could
check
go down that
variance
road.
either. What?
don't go down that road.
And if your shed hadn't been located the way it was, this never would have come up, I'm quite sure.
Because, yeah, they're right.
The
right
building
next to each
inspector
other.
would not have been in your yard measuring the height of your fence.
Of course, no, and I understand that. And I understand
Janet,
it's a new,
help me out here. There's nothing checked on the application.
that could have been user error from my end.
Yeah, but maybe, hear me out. The building inspector says
That's more than 6 feet.
fences over 6 feet high or parts thereof are structures. I would feel more comfortable saying, we grant an appeal of that portion of that decision. Yeah, but it doesn't say variance, special permit, or,
But we
Well,
can't
he-
do this
he
as
did
a
fill out
special
the
permit.
Variance.
It's just for variance.
Well, you just read the fence or parts thereof, and the
You're saying
bylaw
it could
just
have
says
been a
fence.
variance
the
and an
application.
appeal.
could have
Don't
been an
want to go
appeal.
there.
But he didn't
Well,
bring it
no,
up.
we
to
go
the-
there.
No, I mean,
I don't
looking at the
want to
definition.
define it that way. If we define it that way, we're going to be in
We can
trouble.
put a height limit, I'm not worried about that, but we're, if we're talking
We're
about
not
a
going to make a
post appropriate-
definition, we're not going to make a
No.
definition of heights.
And I don't want to, I don't want us to say, I have a real problem, I will vote against it if you try to make it say that posts aren't part of the fence.
No, we're
because
not
that's
doing
just
that, Cheryl,
not-
we're not going there. What we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do, is avoid granting this as a variance. I don't think the necessary hardship is there for a variance, and I think you got a slippery slope here. Actually, 173-118,
I disagree, I think we granted variances, the fact that there's a child in the yard, a couple childs and the topography is steep, you granted variances far easier than that.
Well, the variance isn't asking if you can put a fence up. The variance is asking if we can put a fence up over 6 feet. With a
Or no,
one-year-old,
posts
4-year-old,
over
you
6 feet.
technically do not need a 6-foot fence.
Right.
So- So
173?
it's not the presence of the fence, it's the height of the fence.
It's relating to the open space subdivision.
boy. That 118B does not address the fence as a variance. 118B, to me, addresses the shed as a variance.
118B pretty much, talks about the shed, the
I
planning
think
board
it's-
can.
I think it's the shed.
Yeah.
And I think that Roland steered us there so that we could grant a variances to the shed with no problem. On that, what I consider to be the planning board's jurisdiction, I think Roland steered us there so we could get that one with no problem. On the fence, I'm a little more,
Well, that's not
On the
us being,
fence.
that's not us doing the variance, it's saying that the planning board can waive the requirement.
but then it says variances from this article, that's the open space
Oh,
article,
okay,
may
yeah,
be granted
right.
only by the Board of Appeals.
All right, so that covers the
So I
shed.
think we can give a variance under that.
So are you going in the direction of that we would, because of this particular paperwork, which refers to the shed variance, that we should maybe have him apply for an appeal?
For the fence, we just figured out we can do this.
It's too late to apply because it's past the 30 days, so he really can't. So I think we have to give the variance, but I'd like to, again, say that I want the decision to reflect,
As opposed to incidental.
no, I want the decision to reflect that in this particular instance, the posts are caps on the top, and I don't want to define them, I don't want to redefine posts. I think that's the building inspector's job to present us with something, and then we need to present it to the planning board and then to town meeting.
Okay.
So I think everybody's on the same page as to what we're planning to do here today. I just think it's a question of writing it and Jeff, if
I
you'll
would
be
vote
good
you
enough
write
to
it.
write it, I'll work with you on
You
it.
kept on looking at me.
You know, when I saw you taking the notes,
I started
I
taking
was,
notes.
I was thinking.
I'm sorry for throwing the curveball at you. I know.
That's unfortunately why people
We
do
wanna help
enforce
you.
when there's a
Oh, and
curveball.
I appreciate that, and I
No,
can tell
that's-
that.
But people should
clearly.
realize
You're
that they
being
need to
very,
go to their building inspector before building fences
Yeah,
and
you know what,
Jazz.
with my previous house, I had both a fence and a shed, and it wasn't required in Millis. And it was my own ignorance, honestly, just not
every
looking
town
into
is
it.
different.
Excuse me,
Now I've
Chair.
learned that.
Yes, go ahead.
It doesn't really say you can't have a fence over 6 feet. It says if you have a fence over 6 feet, it's considered a structure
And you can't have a structure that close to the property line.
unless we give a variance.
That's an interesting approach.
So it doesn't say you can't, you can have a fence as tall as you want, just once it reaches 6 feet, it's now a structure, so it falls under the zoning
Needs
regulations.
to be permitted and.
So,
yeah.
okay, now we gotta look at it and say, do we have to, he's applying for a variance for a structure, which just happens to be a fence, that's within the setback.
Aren't we back to the same argument, though, that for this particular fence, that 1-foot variance is not a necessity? And so where's the hardship?
A 4-inch variance.
It's 1 foot to the
If we're talking
sideline.
about
No, it's
setback.
the-
You've got a
it's a
variance of
setback.
a setback
That it
violation
violates,
is
not
what
the
you
height.
have.
There is
yeah.
no height
I think for the
restriction.
hardship, to put up a fence and a shed with the restriction of the topology there is appropriate.
Maybe. I'll certainly entertain a motion to close the debate, but I also want to say to my board and to the people
Can we
who are
close the
listening
hearing
and
now?
watching this, that it's a good thing there's so many of us, because we all have varying opinions and
Concerns.
It's great.
trying to help each
Yeah.
other out here, figuring out a way to get to what I think is the right result in this one, anyway. Okay,
I make a motion to close the hearing.
all those, excuse me,
I
all those in
second.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Hearing is closed.
Do we want
You
more
can-
discussion?
You can be seated in the back again.
Thank you.
I don't know, it's not that late. We can discuss and vote this if you want, while it's
Why
still
don't we?
fresh in our
I
minds.
think we've discussed it.
Yeah, it's been discussed.
So let's-
Anyone want to make a motion?
The only question is, are we going to call the fence a structure and give a variance from the setback or the height? Call it a fence and,
No, Mark is right. We don't have to give a height variance at all.
yeah.
We're
We
just
call
calling it a structure.
Yeah.
And therefore, we need to give it a 1 foot to the sideline variance.
I think it's still worth pursuing some wording going forward that the post up to a certain limit isn't included, so it won't be over 6 feet, so that everybody in town that has a 6-foot, 2-inch fence doesn't have to come looking for a variance.
So Janet said that that's supposed to be coming before us at some posted meeting.
All
Can
right,
we
so it
do
sounds
that?
like the
So
process.
we can deal with it
Yeah,
then,
okay.
but I don't
Yeah.
want to give a blanket.
Alan,
How far is the fence off the property line, in from the property line?
1 foot.
1 foot, and how far is the fence from the shed?
About 3
About
feet.
3 feet.
So it's a 4-foot.
Yeah, well, he said 3.5 feet from the property line, so it
So
must
it's
be
only
2.5
2.5
feet.
feet.
Yeah, and that's
So he's
about what it
left
looked
just
like.
enough, just enough of a space to walk behind, between his shed and his fence, which is practical.
And I'm influenced by the constructive engagement with the neighbor and, no objections.
Positive,
and,
Positive actions with the planning board,
I also think that
Building
we ought to
inspector.
maybe think about sending a letter to the planning board, because on these open space lots, we've had this before, and it's something that started to come up recently, where that offset to sideline was, let's see if I can say it properly, was not intended to prohibit the smaller sized lots from using their homes and their yards the way the rest of us do. That is, we all have 15-foot sideline setbacks, but we are all allowed to put up a fence on the property line. So shouldn't also, just because it's open space and it's a 10-foot sideline setback, shouldn't they also be allowed to put up a fence on the sideline? So in this case, we're exceeding it because it's a 6-foot fence, but I don't think the planning board ever intended for the fence, a fence not to be there, and considered that a 6-foot high fence might have 4-inch caps, and therefore their ruling, I don't think, intended to prohibit 6-foot high fences. I'm just thinking out
Yeah,
loud.
that would be my opinion.
Yeah.
And they maybe need to reword it
Yeah.
so it's clear.
maybe they Well, but the cap situation occurs on every, you
Yeah.
know, so it's still a situation, but you're saying that the planning board should define fence.
Or define
there.
their offset to sideline in their decisions as no part of the primary dwelling. Should be, because,
In the interest of moving things along, I'd like to make a motion.
go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we grant the variance of petitioner Matthew Francis pursuant to 173-118B2, non-conforming uses and structures for proposed shed and fence with a reduced side setback. The shed to not be more than 3.5 feet or less than not to be more, closer to the side setback than 3 feet, and the fence not to be closer to the side setback than, I don't want to say exactly a foot, because if he's.
Approximately a foot, maybe
Approximately 1 foot?
a
Why
fence
don't we say
considered
it
as a structure?
presented, as shown in the
present-
plans and
As shown in the
presented.
plans and presented.
Do we want to say the fence as considered as a structure?
A fence as a structure, as shown on the plans and presented.
And you said 173-18B2?
Yep.
There's no
118B.
2, just 118, just B.
It's 118B2.
Where's the 2?
Oh,
It's
it's
the
just a
second
B,
sentence.
sorry.
Well, no, I'm looking at the bylaw.
Yeah, it's just a B.
There's
You're
no
Oh,
right.
two in
just
the
to be,
bylaw.
sorry. Okay, someone second it, please.
Second.
All in
All those in
favor?
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's granted. Where do you go?
Thank you.
Bye.
Am I good to?
You're fine.
Back to the
Well, you
It's
got,
a variance, so there's a 20-day appeal
Maybe.
period.
If your neighbor comes in the next 20 days and appeals it, then you might have to still do something.
Okay, absolutely. And
so
I
be
know
nice
we're
to
on the
neighbor
same
for 20 days.
And I appreciate all of your hard work and understanding, of course. And listen, I don't plan on putting another shed down, but if I do, I will be sure to come and see you guys first, all right? But let's just hope. nothing
Consider
happens.
next time, welcome to town.
Thank you.
And take a look at the posted openings for boards,
Yeah.
and consider joining us or some other board.
All right.
It's a small town, and it's a very friendly little town, much nicer than
We
Millis.
love it. We love it. Millis was good too, but I have to admit, I'm close with family now. so
I am prejudiced.
Okay, moving along, you're the one that said to.
Michelle, I'll see you tomorrow.
It's calling the 7:30 hearing, case number 918A. It's a continued hearing of 8 Long Lake Road. The petitioner, Edward Kuykendall, requests a special permit or a variance pursuant to 173-10B1, non-conforming uses and structures for extension of a pre-existing non-conforming structure. Now, who of my alternates were here last?
I was.
You were on it?
Yeah, I
Who-
believe
Who
so.
else was on it? That's it. Were you here last meeting?
No, I was second.
You were not, and you weren't here last meeting. If it's okay with you, so I can give my alternates some more time, I'm going to stick with it. Mark is an alternate, and John, you were here last time, but you didn't vote it, so you know what happened last time. And let's do it that way. We're appointing 2 alternates, John and Mark. And just to recap, Mr. Kuykendall came in last time. He wanted a change, extension, or alteration to a pre-existing non-conforming structure in the sense that he decided to enclose a second-story set of stairs, which made more of the structure violating the sideline setback. So the board, it ended up voting it as a variance as recommended by the building inspector. While he was here, he suggested that he also had a shed that he was trying to place, bless you, nearer to the lot line than the 10-foot setback, and asked us to hear that, and we agreed as a board that we couldn't hear it that night because he hadn't properly completed the application form to put everyone on notice that he was asking for that variance as well. But since it was advertised as a variance to the abutters, we didn't think there was any real foul in continuing that hearing to this meeting so that he could bring in and present to us adequate information about the structure and the setbacks so that we could make an informed decision. So it really is part 2 of a second variance request as continued from last month. So go ahead.
So we have 970 square feet with 4 of us living in it, and we need some more storage space, so we want to put in a 12 by 16 shed. Really, the only place to put it is directly behind our driveway, because our septic system is right there. It will be sitting on a stone pad, and I did call the Neshoba Board of Health, and they said it is in the, what is it, the breakout of the septic system, but the Board of Health said that is okay, as long as it's not on a permanent foundation, which it's not going to be.
When you say a stone foundation, what are you talking about?
Crushed stone. Just crushed stone, trap rock.
So it does not have a first
Doesn't have a
wall
permanent,
or-
it's not a permanent foundation, no.
Okay.
And okay to site it on the breakout area. And tell us how your lot is non-conforming. Size of lot, please?
Size of lot, .17 acres, I do believe.
And size of the distance of your frontage. Do we have a plot plan so we can
It's,
follow?
the lot is 75 across the front and 100 front to back.
So it has reduced frontage.
And it also has, what's your place? You're at 8 Long Lake Road, so we also have a sideline violation on the left-hand side. How close are we to the lot line on the left-hand side?
Too close.
I think it's 6 feet.
And then the right side conforms, the rear conforms, and the front is
In line.
too close to the street, but in line. Now, the other thing we talked about last time is, you suggested that this location was the same location as what was originally a
There was a-
garage
there was a
at the
structure
end
there
of
at one
that
point, yeah.
driveway. And that structure is down now. But this is no more offensive than the garage had been. Is that right?
Right. It's actually going to be a very nice structure.
Okay.
Well, the garage
Well, I'll call, as soon
exceeded
as I
this
hear from
house.
board members, we'll call our neighbors. Thank you. Okay, board?
Is this the property that has a brown building in the backyard, kind of?
No, there's nothing else but the house.
There's an overview of it right here.
Yeah, I should have thrown it up.
It's a very tight neighborhood. The house is in line with others. I don't understand the Jersey barrier fence.
Well, there's a Jersey barrier that's probably about 2 feet high at the back.
Yeah, it holds up the neighbor's septic system.
And then there's a fence on top of it. Up near the front, the Jersey barrier basically disappears into the ground because the ground slopes up as it goes toward the back. And then he has a fence, I don't know if it's your fence or the
No,
neighbor's
it's theirs.
fence. That sits right on top of the Jersey barrier.
That's right, I can get it.
Over 6 feet?
Well, it probably is over 6 feet.
Yeah, with the Jersey
post.
barrier it is. There's an elevation there. that you-
With the post included, it probably is. But, yeah, 'cause I was looking at it today, and you can see, in fact, you can see the vent pipe at the end of the septic system sticking out of the ground.
I didn't get a chance to go over there, and I
so-
bowed to someone who does.
So
tell me what you think.
you could see where this, that you can see from the plan here, the only place where the tank, where this shed could go is that one spot.
That's the lot I used to own.
Oh,
You remember that?
yeah,
So you were there.
okay, I've been there.
Not recently.
So that garage that was there is torn down long time ago.
Yeah.
Long before you owned it,
Yeah.
long before this house was the way it was. Okay.
Neighbors? Hi.
Bill Buckley, Margaret Buckley from 10 Long Lake. We've been there since 2004, a good 10 years before. There was never ever a structure there. I don't know when there was ever a structure, but we've been there for 15 years. I also had a plot line done that's sealed.
Where are you?
I'm right
Next
next
door
door.
To the right of them as you face it.
So you're,
right?
you're,
the
you're
fence.
on the same side
Correct.
as
He owns the fence.
Correct.
So you're on the same side
the
as
garage.
where they want to put the shed?
Correct, so the Jersey barrier is only 10 feet, so the property line is actually 11 and a half feet, so it's actually 1.5 feet past the Jersey barrier. So his 6 feet of planting is actually 1.5 feet less than 6 feet, so it's actually 4.5 feet from the property line. I made sure, to get that done.
Could you,
Make
could
sure.
you explain that again? So the Jersey barrier,
The Jersey barrier is 10 feet from the foundation of my existing property, which is right here. So the Jersey barrier is like right here. So the property line goes about 1.5 feet past the Jersey barrier. So if you look right here, the property line is actually right here. It's actually.
On your side of the barrier or on his side, the way you're showing me this
Well,
plan?
He's saying the
It's-
Jersey barrier is 1.5 feet on his property
correct.
for his septic system.
He's
So
saying
actually,
he's
where they're
6
talking
feet
about
from the
putting
Jersey
shed
barrier.
is-
Well, this is where.
Somebody's
he
just a little
wants
closer to the property line.
it. Exactly.
So you're saying it is as, it is as,
So let me ask a question, that may, are you here to complain about the shed going in,
I just don't
or?
understand why it can't go on the east side, the far east side, there's nothing over there. Our bedrooms are on this side.
We already deal with a heck of a lot of noise.
Well, it appears that on the east
you
side,
guys
there's a
don't seem
septic
very
tank.
happy.
Way on the
Well,
east side.
it's
tank's
not that we
here.
don't want them to have the shed in general, it's
If
the
you look in this
location of
sketch, it's
it.
here.
We deal with snow
Well-
plowing
Why can't it go over here?
at 6 in
Well,
the
this
morning
drawing
and
is
10
sitting
at
over here.
night.
Excuse me, board, I have a butter speaking. Can we please give her some?
We have 2 bedrooms on that
respect.
side of the house, and there have been nights where it wakes our child.
What's the snow plowing? Is that his job, his business?
It's a landscaping business.
Well, when he decides to do it.
I mean, are we talking about normal,
I'm talking,
it snowed
I'm
and
just
someone's
saying-
plowing our driveway? Or are you talking about someone running a snow plowing business out of their driveway?
no, he's not, no, he's not running a snow plowing business out of his driveway. I'm saying we're already dealing with a lot of noise. To put a shed there and then have more traffic going in and out next to our bedroom is where our issue is.
That size, why do you need 16 feet? That's
So it's a
pretty
very
big.
large shed.
I mean, seriously.
But they wrote a
I mean,
huge
16
letter
feet.
about how they're
Let
trying,
them finish, please. Let them speak.
16 feet to put all that, you don't need 16 feet. I mean, I'd be thinking you'd put more stuff, 16 feet. That's pretty deep. I mean, think about it, you know, if you move that tree, it just makes it so much more easy access to put bigger machine, you know, things that he has in his business, and it's just.
you
it's-
can't stop him from taking down the tree that's on his property.
Correct.
We're
correct.
not- that's not what we're
That's not
asking.
that's not my concern. Concern is the noise.
I don't understand how the shed contributes to noise.
The traffic of using the
But this
shed,
is speculative.
Well,
it's going on experience.
But plowing your driveway, you're saying you shouldn't be allowed to plow your driveway?
Trying to figure out where their
He
house is on
runs
this.
a
It's here.
business
No, it's right-
and
they're
is
done.
using has
Yeah,
been
their
doing
house.
his own job at his house.
Okay,
So
but the
there's
shed goes
oftentimes
back here.
machinery going on
guys,
Ways back.
guys, we have an abutter speaking, please.
Okay, but.
many hours. And
Okay.
sometimes long, far before 7 AM or after 9 PM.
Does it happen on days that otherwise when there's snow?
Can we back up, can we just back up a little bit? Can we back up a little bit? How he uses the shed is not our business, his business, or their business. The fact that he's asking for a variance to put an imposing structure, which is a large structure, that close to a property line, for an abutter who is saying that it will impact their way
lives.
of life, is important for us to look at.
Our concern
Whether
is
there's-
location.
Whether they're speculating or not. And they offered up that this is a lot that has other areas on it to put the shed. It may be a little less convenient because the driveway doesn't butt up to it, but according to what we've done here before, what we did at the very last meeting, I think it's continued tonight, actually, is another abutter who said, that will have a major impact on me. It's a tight area and my house is right there. So we need to hear the abutter out, please. We need to ask the applicant if there's any possibility of moving your shed to another side, since you do have an abutter that is going to be troubled by this.
Well, that is the only flat spot in our yard that's got that setback from the septic system.
Looks like the left side would have plenty of room.
Well, the left side has got a big slope that goes down,
That's pretty flat area over there.
and the setback on that side is, I mean, the house itself is 6 feet, and to erect a shed like that, we'd have to go over our septic system or through the other neighbor's yard.
To get it back there.
Yeah.
That's if it's a Reed Ferry shed. By the way, my neighbor just put one up. I could not believe the number of huge pieces of equipment that came in to put that up. We thought they were building a swimming pool. There was so much equipment. And all of a sudden, 4 hours later, a shed was up and
They get it done quickly, yeah.
And they all left, but it was like 2 flatbeds
Yeah.
and 3 cranes and a excavator. It was amazing.
Oh,
Yeah,
a big one.
But there
The
are
same, 12 by
smaller,
16.
smaller sheds that come in parts.
They're small, that's right.
There are, even 2 smaller sheds that come in parts if you need to store as much stuff as you listed.
Let me,
There are other avenues that, I'm having trouble with the I gotta admit, I'm on their side with having trouble with the size of the shed. When you think of a 12 by 16 shed, we're here to back to them. this is not a small structure. You know, that's a huge structure.
It's
So-
120 square feet. I mean, in your business, how big do you consider 120 square foot bedroom, small or large?
That's
For our lot
a
size.
reasonable sized bedroom.
Yeah. And
That-
our
No, I'm just saying, so-
we have small houses.
So I
That's,
just want to make sure that,
a
okay.
12 by 16 bedroom's a big bedroom. So, you know, but that's not a small structure. I'm having trouble with it. I understand they're a big family on a very tight lot in a very tight neighborhood and have children and need to store stuff, and yet I'm having a lot of sympathy for the neighbors for all of those reasons.
Jeff,
Your house is to the right of theirs?
Yes.
So he's talking about putting the shed back here, it wouldn't be in line with your house or your back.
No, it's going to be 10 feet off the rear property line.
Yeah, so it's gonna be back away from your house.
Yeah.
So how?
Yeah, it's going to be in the very backyard.
So how does that impact your bedrooms?
It doesn't impact our bedrooms. I mean,
he's asking the
Yeah.
abutter, please.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's the side that we're on, so our house isn't in line with
It's
his
only,
house.
we're only 11 and a half feet.
well, it looks
11
pretty
and a
much
half
in line here in this
from the-
Google Earth. So, I mean, you want to take a look at this? It looks like,
My bedroom is next to his driveway, and our
Yeah.
daughter's bedroom's next to his driveway.
right, but the shed's gonna go further down his property line,
I-
not in line with your house.
From my experience living there for 15 years, the traffic that goes in and out on that side and the lot size causes noise.
But
So
the-
my thought process is, a shed that size with a business that he's running out of his home.
I'm not running my business out of my home.
Well, you
Through the
have
board,
cars.
please, thank you.
You have cars there, and when he initially moved there, it wasn't an issue if he had employees parking at his home. But then it became so routine that it was cars on our front lawn, and I had to say something. So if you're expanding your business and your space, and you have people coming in and out, and you're trafficking in and out of potential equipment, that's on our side. That
O- okay.
proposes more noise.
Let's deal with what the board can deal with.
Sure.
This is a request for variance. We have to find that there's a hardship, and we have to find that the requested relief can be granted. What's the words under the variance here? That a literal enforcement of the provisions of the chapter would involve a substantial hardship, financial or otherwise. Pardon me. And we know that the hardship relates to soil shape or topography, and I think we have that because it's an undersized lot that needs storage, so we've got the hardship. And that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of this chapter. Now, it is reasonable to again visit whether or not there's a possibility of putting your shed anywhere else on the lot that wouldn't require a variance. Or if there's any possibility that the shed size can be reduced in a manner that would be a compromise to the neighbors who are concerned that a shed of this magnitude invites more activity than a normal household in a small neighborhood would need to house toys and children's things.
Yeah, so when I figured out, you know, what the square footage was, it does end up falling below the minimum for actually getting a permit for a shed. I think it's 200 square feet. Am I correct on that?
No, you're not.
What is the minimum?
Is there a minimum on getting a shed permit?
I think it's,
There is.
yeah.
You
there is.
still have to have a zoning,
You still have to have a zoning review, but there's no permit.
so that to make sure that it's not on septic, but it's not.
But they don't require inspections and.
Yeah,
Oh, for a shed.
under 200 square feet, yeah.
Okay. Construction inspections.
So,
Okay.
250, no, it doesn't say, go ahead,
That's construction permits, that doesn't,
go ahead.
that's not what we're talking about.
So, and I asked the building inspector about that. I called the office and found out, you know, and I think it is in the town bylaws. So, you know, the other option is, and, you know, I've calculated out the amount of space. We've got 970 square feet. That is the best place on the property to put it from a topographical standpoint. And, the other option is, the as-built septic shows the property line 22 feet from the leaching field. So we've got, so we've got that space, but the vent sticks out 2 feet, so that gets us 20 feet. The other option would be to do a 10 by 20 or an 8 by 22. And from a standpoint of being offensive, we'll be taking up far less, how do I say it? It'll be less visually impactful if you're looking at it from the front from the street, as it will be if you're looking at it from the side from any of the other neighbors' houses, if they're looking at something that's 20 to 22 feet
I
long.
would never agree to an 8 by 22 shed on the smaller property. That's ridiculous. The fact of the matter is, anything over 200 feet requires construction inspections. And the fact that the building inspector doesn't require construction inspections on this shed does not mean that it's small and that is it automatically granted. What you're trying to do is put a huge shed right on your property line next to abutters that object. So you got to work with us here
Yeah.
because
Oh, no,
that's
I'm-
not reasonable.
But Cheryl, he could place an 8 by 22 shed, which is under 200 square feet.
It has nothing to do with.
10
it.
feet away from the property line as of right, regardless of
Okay.
your objection.
That's true.
What's
So you
the,
have to work here also.
what's the next size down on a Reed's Ferry from 12 to 16?
They go in 2-foot intervals.
And what is the 16-foot? Is that 16-foot face there parallel to their property line?
Yeah, so it's 12 feet wide and 16 deep.
So they're
So-
going to see the 16,
They would see the roof line of the 16. You can see on the elevation.
How tall is the?
We were looking at getting the.
No. How tall is the retaining wall that retains
In
your?
some spots, it's 9 inches, some spots, it's 20.
Okay, so it's not like
Yeah, it's
gigantic.
not
Oh,
exact.
where's your house to this picture? Your house is, this
right
is
here.
Long Lake.
If you look at the
Your
satellite.
house is up front, and this,
They're in line.
no, the shed is not in line with the house.
No, but the houses are in line. And I understand what they're objecting
Is this
to.
a shed on your lot, too? You have a shed on your lot? What's your size shed?
It's 12 by 10.
And is it a wooden,
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
which way is the roof pitch going on this? They're going to, this way?
They'll be facing the street. The gable end faces the street.
Is it less offensive if we put the 14-inch side facing them? Can you get the 16 the other way or not?
No, because it would be onto the septic system.
And you can't move it back.
Well, that's already against the 10-foot setback in the back.
Yeah, but what if we gave you this, the back,
Yeah, I mean, if we get
And
a,
the
that would be,
side.
if I could back that thing, within 6 feet of the back property, that'd be great.
because my recollection was the abutter to the rear was here the last meeting, remember? And he said, once he saw it, he didn't have a problem with it. We asked him specifically.
Yeah. And I actually, I've got, all the other butters have signed that they're okay with it. I sent
To
her,
present that, which
Oh.
is really compelling.
Yeah.
Do you want to come up here and see the plan and tell me if we snugged this up against the back lot line, if that would be less
Would it
objectionable?
help if we could push it way back?
I mean, again, it's 16 feet, and I'm just concerned with what
What's
might
gonna be end up in-
potentially could happen. That's-
Well,
but what is that
concern, that concern is addressed a different way for this reason. We have home occupation restrictions and bylaws. And if he's moving his own snow in the middle of the night because he plowed everybody else and he got home at 3 a.m., he's allowed to do that. If he's having employees park there, he's violating the bylaws. So if your concern is that he's going to start storing more and more business-related equipment, we can address that through a growth of the home occupation that's not permitted. So I think that goes away. I think it's fair and reasonable to say that regardless of other obstacles on the lot, one would want to have their shed in line with their driveway so that you can get your snow blower and other things rolling in and out, maybe even a motorcycle or whatever you have. So,
I think, we're willing to be fair and reasonable. We haven't been unwilling to be. Part of our concern comes from the projects that have already been done. And so now our concern has risen to, okay, now another project, and is it going to be what he has told us it's going to be? Because so far, some of the projects,
He's already
adding
put that
on
there.
a second story versus adding on storage space in an attic are two separate projects. So our tensions are rising a bit when we feel like we're not being presented with correct information and something else
An
happens.
existing structure, there was never an existing structure there, so he tried to get that on.
Not in the 15 years.
He
That's not
didn't
on
do
the
that.
permit.
He didn't do that. The board,
It was on the, it was on whatever
One
he
of those
presented
lines.
last time.
That there
No,
was.
it wasn't. Sorry.
There was a thing that the
On the
garage
plan?
used to be there.
No, we just raised that the garage, there was once a garage there. He didn't say removing the structure. That's on a very old plan, though. What's,
I mean, this is.
That's what was given
Did
to
I
us.
see that?
Yeah. And then with it, you know.
I just have a problem besides the shed.
Yes.
I have a problem besides the shed. If we can give him a variance to the rear property line to push it back and make it a little smaller so it's a little bit more reasonable.
oh, you know what this is? And I just want to explain why this is here. This is the septic plan, and the septic plan said they were removing an existing structure because that was part of the Board of Health requirement that you not have the existing structure sitting there at the time the septic bed was created. This is a very old plan. That's why that language is on this plan. That wasn't Mr. Kokendall.
It just seemed like, I mean.
Y-
he
yeah,
put
no.
Added, you know, existing trees, you removed right on top of where, I don't get. And then it went
It's a
from
little
5
hard to
feet
follow.
to 6 feet.
Yeah.
And 6 feet from the Jersey line is the actual property line, so the fact.
Can
line
you live
actually
with
got-
12 by 14? And can we push you back?
Well, why can't it be 16 by, why can't it be, why 12 by 14?
Because it's the 16-foot side side that's facing them.
So my property line is staked. Both the pins on either end are staked. I've pulled all the measurements, I triangulated everything, and we do have 22 feet from the property line, and it also shows 22 feet to the house from the property line, roughly, and 22 feet to the septic. And that's the as-built from the Neshoba Board of Health.
No, the Neshoba Board of Health
Or
is an
whoever the-
engineered plan, but you had a plan up here a minute ago. Is yours a plot plan, or is yours an engineered plan?
It was
Yours is-
surveyed.
Yours is a plot plan, too. No, these are plot plans for
Mortgage?
mortgage purposes, so you can't go
No,
as...
no. This is a building permit plan. This
Yes.
is totally
I had that staked
accurate.
before I put the fence. in.
Mortgage plans don't need,
Here we do.
this is a certified plot plan.
Yes, I had it done separately, not.
It's a certified plot plan. It is not accurate to the boundary lines how much did this cost you?
It was a couple $100.
Yeah,
I
this
had
is a mortgage
Russell-
plot plan, I'm sorry.
Russell-
Russ Wilson, we do these all the time for closings. These are not engineered plans. You can't rely on them.
It wasn't for a closing, though. I had it to
Right.
make sure that they marked it correctly.
So
that
you're
it's
saying
the-
you had it surveyed?
Yes, correct.
He paid to have it surveyed.
It wasn't for.
It's not the same.
I certify that the existing structures are constructed where shown on this plan.
It is not a certification that the lot lines are accurate. Now, he did find an iron pin here, and he found an iron pin here, and it's probably accurate, but these are mortgage inspection plans. These are not engineered surveys, and his could be identical in the other direction. So that's neither here nor there. That's not the issue right now. The issue is, I just wanted to know if this was actually a engineered stake, the corner's $2,500 plan. It's not.
There's
Here- they're coming 6 feet off this
something
line
found
is
here,
what they're
something
saying.
found here.
They're saying that he's coming 6 foot off of this line here, which they're saying is 1.5 feet on their property. So actually, his 6 foot to the Jersey barrier is really only 4.5 is what they're saying.
Correct.
If you should get a variance,
Yep.
the language is such that it will refer to a dimension.
Yeah,
And if you don't conform to that dimension,
Yeah.
then you're in violation of.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
So that's-
absolutely.
That's why.
Hey, look,
we-
I'm not trying to pull anything over, we've got a small house, and we need some storage.
So I'm not voting on this, but when I hear your concerns, which I accept as real, My feeling is this noise is not related to the shed. It's related to a home occupation
No,
complaint.
this is the lot right here.
And I don't see,
No.
I can understand your concern, but you need to, if you have a complaint, you need to go to the building inspectors, as the zoning enforcement officer, and make your complaints about parking or hours of operation or whatever. And we have, unfortunately, a lot of these disputes. So, and once again, I'm not voting, so, but I don't see the relationship between the shed issue, which is in the far corner of the property, and the noise issue.
Board members who are voting, I just want to call your attention to the letters that he submitted just now. I'll read off the names of who signed them, and I don't know all of their addresses because they're not here, but the first one is signed by Peter Scott. He's not opposed. I don't know if Scott owns
doesn't live anywhere near
property.
He owns,
Don't-
he owns.
Excuse me, I'm speaking, thank you. I don't know if Peter Scott owns property and is a legitimate abutter. The address is not here. The next one is Helen Bailey and John Bailey at 9 Roxbury. I believe they could be abutters on the backside. Next one is Andrew McNaught at 5 Long Lake, and that would be an abutter across the street or diagonally across the street. The next one is signed by Kristen Donahue, and she is not identified as to where she lives. Next one is signed by a Scott Newboard, which is 15 Roxbury, which I believe is also on the backside. And the last one by a Greg Malone. Do any of those names ring a bell as abutters who were part of his abutter list? So I can just check that, please, to see. Yeah, I have it. Oh, I have the file.
And what's the point of those letters? Are they in support?
They're all in favor of, or no
Yeah.
opposition.
No opposition. He has their form letters.
He printed up a letter asking them to sign if they're not opposed to it. There's my abutter list. It is
My problem
also-
is I know where Peter Scott lives, and it's not there.
He could be an abutter, he could own property there, and that makes him an abutter. So I have, Roxbury is, all these Roxbury ones are abutters. Greg Malone and Peter Scott are not identified as to where they live, or where they have property. Malone isn't a butter.
On where?
Malone is 7 Long Lake, so he's across the street a butter.
Okay.
I don't see Scott's name. I don't know if he owns the Renee Trust. But I don't see Scott's name here. Okay. So, oh yeah, he is in a butter. He's at 17 Roxbury, so he's a
He
legitimate
owns a piece of property over there.
Behind us.
Now, the person directly behind, who's having no opposition, saw the plan at 10 feet off the back line. If we push it back to 6 feet, is that going to have an impact on that
They've
person?
written a letter saying they don't care.
We didn't have a plan showing how far off the line
Maybe they didn't.
last meeting.
Oh,
And they had a right to come to this meeting. Can I have these for the file?
Yes, yep.
So, my, my preference is not to reduce the size only because these lots are small. There's no basement in that. There's a basement, but it's
Partial.
wet and it's partial. and
It's very wet.
There's no attic. These lots are small.
He just built an attic.
There is an attic.
We just gave him a variance to put his,
We put a 12-pitch roof on it.
Okay. You can't get a snow blower up there or a bicycle or something like that.
I know, but
No.
a 12 by
And
16
I-
shed is huge. Let's close the
That's
hearing first.
subjective.
No, I don't want to close the hearing first
That's
because they,
subjective.
I
Mine's
still,
30 by 34.
the family, the abutters may still have something to say. And my feeling is, I understand the noise and the disruption, but my feeling is, I would much rather have somebody's yard belongings contained within a structure than to have them all over the yard as mine are, so, I'm pretty
You have a
happy to
large
give.
structure and still have them all over the yard, and
I
that
know,
can certainly
I
be
know.
the case here.
We're not asking for him not to have one.
Right. So my preference would be to move the shed back as close as we can, that we're willing to give him to the back lot line, which takes the sting out of having it right outside your window for the noise and the activity. And to make it very clear to him and to you that if there's activity that is excessive of home use, incidental to a residence, or home occupation with no more than one employee, you have an absolute right.
Let's talk,
To
wait a minute.
complain.
I'm not willing, what you just proposed is not something I'm on board with. So let's talk it out a little bit more. How far is the back of your leach field off your property line? Did
I
you-
haven't-
Did you
I-
just say 22 feet?
It's 22 feet off the side.
And how far is it off the back?
I don't know that.
Isn't this it?
Probably at least 16.
I'm guessing it's the minimum setback is the size of the lot.
So I want to put it, if we're going to grant this, I want to reduce it a little bit, at least a little bit, put it over to as far close to his leach field as we can get it, and as far back as we can get it, and be reasonable. Within 5 feet of the back property line, and give them at least 6 feet to the property line, not 4.5 feet to their septic system, or 6 feet to their septic system. I want to give
There
them.
being them?
Yes, I want to be as far away from their property line as possible. I have sympathy for them. I mean, give me a break. So let's get it as far away from their property line as possible. Let's reduce it down a little bit, make it not quite as wide maybe, and push it back as far as we can.
I just want to emphasize, this is one person's request.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
only one.
but
the
also,
board.
Cheryl, I don't think a decision can dictate the size of the shed. The decision can dictate the setbacks, and that's it. So you can control the size of the shed by the amount of setback you say, but you can't say that you can only build.
So wait a
I don't-
second, stop. Oh, stop. Give me a motion to close the hearing.
I mean,
Well, you-
John, thank you.
I second that.
Second, Mark. Okay, now, continue.
all in favor?
Let's,
All in favor?
Oh, yeah, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I have matzo balls in my head, I'm sorry, I'm cooking Passover already.
I want to get it as far away from these people's windows as possible. The fact that they have young children and are being bothered by the noise
But
is
I
a
would argue-
legitimate complaint to me.
Right now, the noise is mostly caused, I would imagine, by the driveway being right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's,
And
but
no
this
matter
is
where
going to
you put the
give,
shed, the driveway's still going to be there.
but now you're going to have the opening and
Once we close
closing
it,
of
can't
shed
input anymore.
doors.
Oh,
Now you're going to have the opening and closing of shed doors, the rumbling of things being taken in and out of it. We all know the more storage you have, the more you put in it, and the more stuff you accumulate to put in it. It's an easy algorithm. So moving it as far away from their windows as possible, even if they're still using the driveway to get things in and out of it, I think will help contain the noise as much as
Yeah,
possible.
keep in mind, it's already a fair distance from their bedrooms.
So if we went 6 and 6, a 6-foot rear line and a 6-foot sideline.
Why don't we do 5?
One second, please. Can you live with that?
Yes, I
Why
can.
not 5 rear? Where are you coming up with 6?
Yeah, just a nice square.
I would support 6.
You support 6? You
Oh.
support 6? 6
5,
and
6,
6.
I don't care. But the 6
You need
feet
to put
side
6 and
right
6.
now, it sounds like it's really 4.5, so.
Well, he's going to have to deal with that. He'll-
Well, he's gonna have to, there are, according to both his plans and he said they're pins, so he can put that line in, no trouble. The two of you get together.
And I'm sure Roland
string
will
a string
measure it.
across and say, this is the property line, because there's iron pins, the corners, right?
Now, we have
And then if
given,
we say it's whatever the distance off that property line, that's the distance, that's where we measure from, not your fence, but that line.
now I want to talk about what Jeff said. Many times, we have defined the dimensions of a building or structure that we are giving a variance for. We have not just defined the setback. We have defined the size of what we're allowing in the setback.
When that's like a footed permanent structure, a shed is a shed. The shed can be.
Well, we've defined it before.
I think, I don't want to be in the business, and I don't think you should want to be in the business of telling people what they
They can
can
put
or
in a-
cannot
Yeah,
have.
with-
In a setback?
And we always have people coming in saying, I need this for my truck, or, whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying, I would handle it with the setback, and then leave him to decide how he wants to accomplish it. Although
we have
I would
said-
say, you should, okay, I'm sorry,
my eye
Cheryl.
out.
I'm sorry. You are correct. If we're giving them a variance for the side setback, I'm gonna backtrack.
We've always defined.
Because we are defining the length of the variance,
We are.
because if we just said 6 feet, he could extend it,
all the way up.
Yes.
And
You are
I'm not,
correct.
I'm not willing to do that.
One more, just,
Yeah.
also in terms of size, we certainly have said a single story and not two-story, because you don't want more up, too. So what if we,
You can't have
what
a
if we were
two-story
to say?
temporary structure like that.
Yes, you can.
Oh, he could.
Yes, you can. Look at back at 46 Russell Street.
Well, then he'd be over his
How about-
200 feet.
Okay, we have another hearing. How about if we do something like no greater than 12 by 16 with setbacks as follows,
Yeah,
6 and 6?
that's what I was
I
going to
don't want,
suggest.
I
Yeah, you
still
like
think
that?
12 by
Yeah.
16, I still think 12 by 16 is awfully big.
I'll
It's
take a motion.
192 feet, square feet.
And they have a very small house, and they can use the storage.
Give me a motion, Rod.
Okay, I move we approve the variance for whatever the plot plans are and so on, to be 6 feet, I don't have the numbers here, to be 6 feet side setback and 6 feet rear setback, and the shed to be 1 story, not to exceed 12 by 16.
Will that 6 feet side setback, there seems to be some discussion as to the plot line, will that give him enough room to put that shed and not,
Maybe not. Maybe he'll have to go down to 14 feet, and he'll have to deal with that.
okay.
Or not 14, it'd be the 12 would go down.
Down
Uh,
to 10.
The 12 will go down to 10, and he'll have to deal with that.
Move that by 2
Or
feet.
move his standpipe or something.
Move the vent by 2 feet out.
Well, yeah, so
It's movable.
I think you can deal with that. And I think that's a compromise that you can live with. And again, if the noise activity level is
Separate.
that of a exceeding a home occupation, you're certainly welcome to go right to the building department.
Okay, and we don't have to put that
Best I
kind of
can do.
restriction to it.
I tried. You know?
We don't
But
have to put that
seriously,
restriction in.
there are noise levels and restrictions and noise levels.
The motion is on the table, has anybody seconded it? Oh, you second it.
Rod's motion, Mark's second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Cheryl?
I haven't opposed, I think it's too big. I'm gonna stick my ground there.
Thank you.
You got it.
Thank you.
Back in the corner. Please be gentle with your neighbors.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we're building the house, and it's going to be done soon, hopefully, and the noise will be settled down.
So his bedroom's on the same side.
Yeah.
His kids are being, both bedrooms face each other.
Yeah. And the shed's back away from
For the shed's back from it all.
It's a busy
And that wasn't
house.
that wasn't the objection. The objection was noise. That's a totally different issue that literally has nothing to do with the shed.
Yes, a shed can, the opening and shutting of a shed and storing stuff in it and moving stuff in and out of it causes noise.
Time is 8:38, and we're opening the
Need water, I'm sorry. Does anyone else want a cup of water while
Yes,
talking?
love
please,
one.
yes, please.
17 Lakeshore Drive. Am I right about that? I lost my agenda.
That's correct.
here. Yeah.
Agenda.
They're saying they can see you
I'm right on it. Okay.
from the
What are we looking at?
Opening the case, number 919A, 17 Lakeshore Drive, continuation. The petitioner, Integrity Building and Design, Inc., requests a special permit variance pursuant to 173-10B1, non-conforming uses and structures for the removal of an existing two-car garage and the construction of a new two-car garage.
Oh, yeah, this is the one from last time.
Thank you. Speak.
My name's Dustin Neild. I'm the property owner at 17 Lakeshore Drive. I got Dana and his firm Integrity to present our plans a month ago. But I wanted to open tonight just by saying that I never tasked Dana with deciding what the proper project was for our home. I've lived there for 15 years. I know where the septic system is. I know the parameters and the constraints of my property. I've served for several years as a trustee on the Conservation Trust and have documented over 126 species of birds on Long Lake. Nobody cares about impacting that lake more than I care about it. So from the very beginning, our goal was to maximize the use of the property the best way that we could to add a family room. It's a project we wanted to do for a very long time and have planned to do, financially speaking, arranging things to make sure we were able to do a project like this in the least impactful way possible. Of course, if you're going to go high, I understand my neighbors' concerns behind us. Nevertheless, that's definitely the best location that we had. So after last month's meeting, I tasked Dana and his firm to come up with alternate plans for us. So tonight, there are 3 new versions here. We're going to call them Plans A, B, and C. I want to make it clear that Plan A is not what I brought last month. Last month, our original design was a 12-8 pitch. Our Plan A automatically brought it down to a 12-6, so it's 2 feet lower. Plan A, as we see here, is, which one? It's this one here.
Dustin, you're Dustin, just give me a minute.
Sure.
I'm sorry to do this. It just occurred to
You have to
me.
get out of here, go.
Oh, yeah.
Go, you're not on this.
Yeah, it occurred to me that I'm supposed to be over there, and I don't
I'm
know who was
chairing.
on it last week.
Kitty, me,
So-
and Jillian.
So I need to recuse myself. You need this.
Yeah.
I probably need to take notes because I'll end up writing it.
Kitty, you and Jillian, but Rod was here, and Mark was here. So we'll put them in, and then, do I need one more?
Yes.
Which of you gentlemen would like to participate?
The last time? You were last time.
Neither of you were here last time. Flip a coin.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Pressure's on.
Seriously,
You
you
go
want?
ahead. You do it.
I hate you.
I know.
Who's on it?
I am.
Okay. All right, so, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Reopening the case, you've come up with 3 designs. Is that correct?
Correct. So for the benefit of the new members that weren't here last time, the reason things were, excuse me?
I'm the
Only one, I'm sorry. For your benefit. We're here because neighbors directly behind us had concerns about their view of the lake being reduced. And there were some details of the plan that we couldn't answer at the time, specifically the height of the existing house and where the addition would be relative to that. So Plan A, which is shown here, is reduced to a 12-6 pitch on the garage family room. That is extremely comparable in height to what you see as the right side of the house here is, I believe, is 23 feet 10 inches compared to 23 feet 8 inches in Plan A.
And that's existing.
The
that's
existing
proposed.
is shown in the dark line
Yeah, no,
on the garage. Everything else, but, so,
The only place you're adding space is over the garage.
Correct.
and this connector, there's a smaller connector there today that's really just a little staircase to go through.
But the right-hand side is already there.
Everything here is existing.
Exactly, okay. And so they're tearing down an old garage, putting on a new garage, and putting a family room above it and connecting them.
Yes.
The existing garage is the dark outline for a reference point.
Their neighbors, the neighbors said, gee, that you're gonna block our view from our bedroom window of the lake. And we sent them all off to work together to see if they could come up with a plan that would abate some of the neighbors' concerns about their lack of view and still achieve his goals of giving himself a little bit more space and a decent garage. Is that a good summary? Okay.
Right. And the difficult parameters we have to operate in today are in the back of the house, the existing septic system is at the 10-foot mark. It was engineered to be 10 feet away from the existing garage, so we're extremely limited in the ability to move to any other location. The house, as it stands, has 2 closets in the entire house, so that connector part gives us some interior space. It's going to be a mudroom, essentially. And we have a crawl space only basement, so we're extremely limited in storage. The bulk of our storage today goes, stuffed around the cars in the garage and in the little sort of attic space above the rafters in the garage today. So this plan meets a couple of those goals: storage, better accessibility from the house into the garage, because now the stairs that go up, so as you can see, the house is sort of 5 or 6 stairs up from the garage. The existing access point is at the front of the garage, so you kind of have to pull as far in as you can and come to the front. The new design will have the stairs interior to the garage, but at the back of the garage, which gives us width to be able to support someone who has a hard time getting up the stairs. They can get from the garage into the house, and if we ever needed to have a ramp in there, we could do it interiorly, because where the stairs are now, it would go across the whole garage, and you couldn't park there if you did that.
Do you have a handicapped person currently living in the property?
I do temporarily.
And that gives everything a whole different, no? Because they're temporary? Okay,
The situation is my elderly mother-in-law, who's 90, lives with us. I'm certain that her medical condition won't permit her to live there more than a couple more years, but
It's
I
not
don't
temporary, dear.
have time certain for that.
That's still not temporary. You have an elderly person who's handicapped living with you, and you anticipate her only being able to live with you a couple more years. That is still not temporary. You have a handicapped person living with you, and that puts a whole different genre on this case. And I'm a little out of my water with it. But go ahead.
Okay.
Let's keep going. But we have, board members should keep that in mind. Under ADA, handicapped accessibility, he gets all sorts more leeway.
So my point is it gives us flexibility in the future. My plan is not to make it handicap accessible in that way at this time. That is not part of this plan.
Okay.
Okay.
You have two plans.
Actually, there's three. So we covered Plan A.
Yep, and that's your favorite.
That's my preference aesthetically, but also it gives me about 5 feet from attic floor to rafter for potential storage in the attic space. It's the most space available up there.
And what do we think of that pitch? Is that pitch reasonable for weather in New England?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And you can compare it to the garage, the dark line is the existing garage pitch, it's very similar. to
Like,
what's
the
there.
house looks like it might be also a 6-pitch.
It's a little bit more.
A little more?
Yeah, it's a 7 or 8.
Okay,
Yeah, it's sort of in between. It's not typical.
okay. And your next plan?
The
I'm
next
sorry, I'm
plan-
gonna move you along if I may.
Yeah, so actually, the B and C are similar. I think C is on the back of this one. No, so
Yes, he said.
So this is C, which is more Gambrel style, which I don't like, and I don't really want to talk about, other than say you had 3 plans, and I didn't like the third one.
Is this is not lower or anything like that?
It is.
Each one is lower, so A is here, B is a foot lower, and C is a foot lower than that. C gives me very little clearance in the attic space, and I don't like it aesthetically, so it's my least preferred version. B is the one in the middle, which is a foot lower than A, so it's about 4 feet of attic space. You can see it's dormer style on both sides. It's not my favorite aesthetically. You can see it's a shallower roof pitch.
What
And
is that pitch?
it's marked on there. Give me just a moment to see what it says.
4.65 to 7?
4.85
Oh.
to 12.
And what do we think of that pitch?
That's fine.
Is that fine for
Yeah.
winter?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair, can we put those on the ledge so we can see them as abutters?
Of course.
Why don't we leave C away? Since,
Yes, they're not.
do A and B, please.
That's version A. This be on the back here. Which one's B? It's not on the back.
It's on the back of A, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry.
All right, so those are possibilities that bring the roof line down, and in working with your neighbors that you've come up with. Is there anything else you'd like to present to us at this very moment? We'll come back to you for questions.
The only small thing is there's some additional pictures that show kind of more totality of what they have for a view from the
Ones
back.
on the back of that?
Yeah, and I have some individual ones I've printed here that are mostly the same. They're not exactly the same because Dana presented different ones than I did. But if you'd like, there's, I think, 4 pictures of each of these. I think there's 3 copies here, so I'll ask you to share.
Yeah, we can share. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Where are these pictures being taken from?
Let me run through them together with you. The first one is the picture that the abutters in the back showed to you on their phone at the last meeting.
Right,
That's from their upstairs bedroom window, was the perspective that was presented.
right.
And you can see, of course, if the garage goes up, it reduces that somewhat. The second photo
That's your
is,
existing house.
I see
that
other
is the
picture, too.
assessor's picture of our house, it's not my picture. But you can clearly see that on
I
the
see the
other side
picture.
of the house, you can see their White House in the background. So you can see that they do have a clear view to the lake from there. The third picture is from my backyard looking at their house, just to give you perspective of where their house is located behind mine, particularly if you keep the shed that's there as a reference point in the different pictures. Because the last one that is shown is a picture from the previous occupant of that house, and you can see the same shed in the same location. And it shows that the view on that side of the house is much more open.
Okay, so where is this being taken?
That is from my abutter's deck, but provided from the previous homeowner.
Okay, I'm confused. Okay,
That's
Thank
their
you.
view from that house, that's all. Just trying to give a bigger, wider picture is all.
and if you, I think we have a butters here. You need to state your name and your address.
So it's Peter and Juliana Sims, 28 Juniper Road. We sit directly behind.
The White House?
Yeah, the White House, yeah. We're here in support of these plans. We're grateful that we were able to work together on this.
Yeah, we actually met with Dustin, had a really great conversation with him and thought that Plan B was a great compromise of the 3 plans that they discussed with us. In terms of like us being, so we're gonna lose, we want them to be able to have the space. We understand his mother-in-law's living with them, they have a family. We want them to be able to go up, because they have, like you said, they don't have anywhere else to go but up. And I do understand that,
He has a preference for Plan A. Is the difference between A and B, the height difference and view significant to you?
I think it would, yeah, we have trees we could see, I think with Plan B, and they've also talked about maybe going down with the structure, with the basement.
Let me clarify on that. The structure wouldn't go down, but one of the storage options we have is that under the connector part I was talking about, the foundation there has to go 4 feet down, and the top of the existing foundation is approximately 4 feet up, so it gives us space for true basement area as a way to maximize storage. So there's an alteration to the plan to maximize some more storage in that area, even though the structure that you see is unchanged. It's the foundation.
So I think what, relating to your point is you would be able to create some storage with this alternative, which would mean that maybe you wouldn't need to grab as much storage in the.
Correct.
roof. Okay.
So you're saying if he builds this, do you lose your view of the lake?
We're gonna lose the view on that side of the lake.
But you have other views of the lake?
From our downstairs, yeah, and we do have, that's like our primary view.
Is
We're gonna
this-
lose 50% of our, view.
This is my
Just
question.
clarify, is this, you handed this out, but is this the
That's
picture?
their
you-
picture,
Okay,
yes.
did you see this, Alan? Just want to,
That's your view also? Okay.
Yeah.
That's all. I just didn't want to see that. I see a whole walls of views from the other house and you losing the only one you had. So that clarifies for me.
Yeah, that was the purpose of the 4 pictures, give some more perspective, because the picture they provided last week showed off just over the garage, where actually their best view is to the left.
How we use the room though, it
Oh.
looks over your garage.
Okay, let's not revisit that, because we have
Yeah, we
happiness.
talked about that,
We're gonna
yeah.
leave the happiness where it is. Where the building they wanted to build originally, which is not these, would have completely blocked the view of from their bedroom. They do have views from other parts of their house.
Is this
but-
one of
and
your
so that we
views?
sent them off to compromise, they've come back with a compromise.
oh, okay.
So Plan B, what's the height?
It's marked on there, I believe it's 22.
22.5 from the ground.
Okay, so we could use that as
Plan
not
A?
to
And
exceed.
Plan
Plan A
A?
is 23.5, 23.8, sorry about that. It's 13 inches higher.
Can you live with B, okay?
I can live with B, even though it's not my preference, yes.
15 inches, but those counting.
Sorry. Quick math.
Correct.
So we could use the 22.5 not to exceed.
Sure, you can make that motion as soon as we get there. Are we ready to close the hearing? Have we heard all the data we wanted to hear from our abutters and our presenter?
I just want to clarify, it sounded like you had other views of the lake from your house, or is this the only?
We do have other views
From
from the,
They're saying,
Oh, okay.
they're saying they do have this view.
that's the downstairs, yeah. Yeah, we didn't take that photo,
But I
yeah.
mean, is this,
But this is the view you have from your
From
downstairs.
our deck, that's from
Your
that.
deck.
oh, okay.
So what, their bedroom view is being affected.
May I make a motion to close the hearing?
You may.
Please.
Second.
I so do.
And we have a second, Rod. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, discussion. What are we thinking?
Okay, well, I was gonna say not to exceed B, but they do have a nice view there, so I'm a little less inclined to restrict them to B.
I am amazed the efforts that you have made to accommodate your neighbors. The only reason we're here is because, we have to, is this a variance or a special permit?
I believe a variance.
It's a variance.
Okay.
And there certainly
I
is
mean,
hardship.
otherwise you would be allowed to.
We already established
build
Can I ask for a
whatever-
point of clarification on that? Because we traded emails last week, and I think it was clarified that it was a special permit, no?
If that's with Shelley, you'll have to.
Oh, I'm
read
sorry.
the Building inspector. No.
Oh, let's read the building
Really?
inspector's notes in, I'm
Because
sorry.
I guess
My
the
apologies.
point is
Is it too
that
late?
unless you were, you know, you have a non-conforming structure, we would not be here. You could do as of right whatever you wanted. So in this case, the board is asserting its, you know, ability to sort of try to mediate.
Yeah, the footprint's not changing, but the nonconformity is increasing
It's
because of
increased,
the height.
the non-conformity is increased as to height.
Is-
So, anyway.
His original plan was considerably taller than A or B
Okay.
is, and would have, and we only had the one view from her window, her bedroom window, and thought that was quite frankly her only view. But nonetheless, they've done a fabulous job of compromising, and I'm pleased with either A or B, and pleased with the amount of work that the petitioner has put into this project, and the cooperation between both sets of neighbors.
So, my view, and I'm an architect, is that I like A in terms of the appearance. I personally don't see much material difference between A and B. We're talking about 15 inches or whatever. So that's neither here nor there. I would support either one. So, anyway, that's all I have to say.
I'm feeling very similar. I'm pleased with A's considerably shorter than the original plan was. I am fine with A, I'm fine with B, and I agree that A looks prettier, but it's all aesthetic. What do you think?
Yeah, same way, but given that they have a nice view from the deck, I would not be opposed to A.
Are we deciding between A and B?
Basically.
Yeah.
Well, we have
We're
to,
deciding how high
High,
we're going to
height.
let
high.
That will then make between A and B.
A and B.
right,
Yeah,
That's
so
what
it's
we're
either
deciding.
25
Which
A
And how do you
Or
feel, sir?
or 6 or whatever.
Mr. Siebel?
22.5 or 23.8.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
So,
22.5,
22.5,
okay,
23 foot 8.
23 foot
Can
8.
he,
There's
can,
also the pipe that comes out of A and B, but
That's not a structure, so that's just for the wood stove.
the wood stove pipe in A goes much higher than in B in the plan.
No, it's only gonna be a foot difference.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that pipe is drawn, code-wise, it'd only be 2 feet above, as far as that.
It needs to be 2 feet above the top of the roof.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
won't be sticking up.
whatever refining it is, it's 2 feet above. But we can't talk to you guys anymore.
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, our hearing is closed, we're just discussing.
So, yeah, so we're just discussing what height we're gonna allow.
Exactly.
And I'm with other members of the board that their primary view of the lake is from their deck, not their bedroom window. And they've lowered the roof line already, so there is still some more view from the window. And I'm happy with the height that shows up in level B, in A, I mean, which is the
This is not a
20.
covered deck, though, this is like seasonal.
I
So,
understand.
I mean,
Okay.
Just so we make sure we're dealing with, we know what numbers we're talking about, what was the height of the original design?
so,
That is which?
actually, if you could put a scale on that, just to see how
No,
how
what's-
high you're raising the
Get you
ridge.
caught up.
Okay.
Let me do this.
Oh, the original design, okay.
Sorry.
What was that height?
That was the original plan.
Okay.
As far as that goes.
Yeah.
And that was 8, 16, 17, 25.
It should be exactly +2, right? Because it was
20
12.8 instead of
25
12.6.
feet. It was 25 feet.
Okay.
So it was
Okay.
So we brought it down, Plan A went down, the original a month ago was at 25 feet. The new version of A is now 23 feet, 8 inches. So
And how high is
down
B?
0.4.
And how B is
We
this the
can look up
same?
ourselves.
Yeah,
We
that's
need-
what I'm
We
doing.
need to stop the
He's
interaction.
22.
I'm not interacting, I'm
26.
questioning,
22 feet,
explaining to the
6
board what I'm
inches.
finding.
22.5.
22.5,
Oh, 22.5, okay.
okay, and C, I don't have drawing of
We
C.
don't care, that's,
Yeah, we're not-
see, it was ugly.
What?
Not dealing with C at this point, that's even a little bit lower.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to establish facts, not make opinion. Dealing with numbers to me are facts, not opinion. So, okay.
And so what is your opinion upon the height of, that we should allow of this addition.
If A is 23 feet and B is 22.5, 22
A
feet.
is 23 feet.
8 inches.
Oh, 8 inches, okay, that's why I want to get,
So
okay.
it's an extra.
Foot and a quarter.
15 inches.
Well, I do appreciate the work.
Yeah.
I'm sure all of these drawings were not cheap.
And the
So,
difference-
yeah.
The
I-
difference between the original and A isn't all that much.
It's a foot and a half still.
Yeah, but it's, just a little under a foot and a half, but B does have its merits, because you pick up another foot and a half, a little over a foot. Yes, I think I'm inclined to say not to exceed 22.6. Basically B.
Yeah, I mean, I would, more than happy to go along with B, because if the abutters are happy with B and it still accomplishes the goals that the applicant is looking for,
Right.
it may not be optimum, but,
But
And
it does
Dana may
recover
be
some
able to
sun.
make B look more like A, you know, so.
so yeah, I would support the,
I'm of the-
22.6.
I'm of the opinion that I don't see appreciable difference in their view, quality of life, detrimental to their neighborhood of either, but I am willing to go with whoever makes a motion that makes sense, that goes along with it, that the board, someone will second and go with it. I am okay with A, I'm okay with B.
Could
So-
we split the difference and say 23 feet?
well, he's already got the drawings.
But if he wants to put a little extra space there, I'm okay with that. If he
Yeah,
wa-
just a
but
slight
it's up to
pitch
him to, whether he wants to pay to redraw the darn thing.
That's not bad, because that's just a slight pitch change to A.
Not that hard.
Just make a motion.
I move that we grant a variance for a second floor addition to an existing garage.
No,
No, a new garage.
rebuild the existing
Okay.
garage and add.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like-
A second, a two-story addition to, on the footprint of the existing garage, not to exceed 23 feet in height,
Second.
substantially as shown in the plans presented to us.
And we have a second in Rod. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 23 feet it is.
Thank you.
Thank you to the board, thank you to Dana.
I think that's a lovely compromise between all.
Hope you enjoy the view of all the birds he's identified.
They pick up 2 feet, so that's good.
Okay, can I,
Sorry, board, just one quick question.
Yes,
And you also the neighbors, just with what's been passed. If we go with this version, you don't care. In other words, this is just decorative, as
No,
Jeff
we
was
we
explaining.
just established
As
a
long as
height.
it's 23 feet,
Yes.
you don't care what it looks like.
23 feet or less?
Perfect.
Yep.
Just wanted to make, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Go.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Good luck.
Can I say something before she takes over again? I didn't make the oh, no, you guys go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
I didn't make the motion to close the hearing. Once we close the hearing, we cannot keep asking questions of our petition and our butters. We just can't do it.
That's not true. You
Yeah.
can't allow them to further input,
Oh,
but
is
the
that-
board can ask clarifying questions.
Oh, my
yeah, that's what I
apologies
would've
then,
thought,
thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, sorry.
You're sitting there shaking your head and frowning at me.
No, I was, no. I thought it was a wonderful negotiation. We said the parties hoped to work together.
And they
They
did.
worked
Yeah.
together. They did a great job.
They sure
And we're
did.
very proud of all of
And
you.
I was really pleased that that's what they did.
Thank you. Thank you for making our life a lot easier.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be the most contentious one tonight. It wasn't.
No,
was
nice
agreed.
people all around. Can we,
So-
do you want to do the minutes?
No, I need to go. I gotta cook for 35. Sorry. I have matzo ball head tonight.
I'd like to make a motion, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing, to close the meeting. Second.
You can make it. if
All
you
in
take the
favor?
chair.
Aye.
No, wait.
Meeting is closed, turn off.
We'll review these next time.